Brittany, do you have anything?
Does the RV park currently have like somebody on site that residents or people that can speak to, and like any issues that come up? Is there somebody there that's
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe there's, and Mr. Baker can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's a maintenance employee who lives there on site.
Uh-huh.
And I think they know each other pretty well.
Yeah.
Some of the different folks that stay there. And then there's also a manager for the RV park as well. I don't believe he lives on site. Manager does. That's right. Manager does live on site.
Yeah.
So.
So with this expansion, are you guys gonna have like more?
For, RVs can both pass each other on these roadways, so that would be fine. Greg Drive, that's, I know that there's been a lot of conversation about Greg Drive itself and with Waco Industrial Foundation and that sort of thing, so.
I was thinking more along the emergency preparedness, if it was good enough if everybody had to leave in a hurry.
I see what you're saying.
As we expand the park, our intention is to add roads, and that
Yeah.
can be seen on the concept plan. What you see up on the screen currently in red is the existing park. It's approximately 78 pad sites. There's also a laundry house and a room for dedicated for showering. There's also several storage barns. Our intention is to add a general store, which you can see in the yellow area. A general store, a larger laundry house, and a larger wash house, along with some other amenities that were described a little bit earlier. But we would, as we develop that, phase 2 is what we call that in yellow, we would be adding roadway there. So the roadway will be inside the park. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it'll still all tie into the main entrance.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
There is an additional entryway that is there, as you can see, kind of
To the south.
further to the south, yeah. And as we grow, and we move into that last phase, we would try to probably work with the city and work to create some sort of other entry and exit point potentially at that furthest northern edge, as we grow.
So,
Yeah, Jimmy, it looks like there's 3 exit points on this evacuation plan.
Yeah.
But I didn't see it in the conceptual site plan.
It's not currently, it is not currently an exit
So
or
it's kind of
entry point.
kind of a conflict between the two plans.
Yeah.
And really my only concern is the same as P and Z, is the flooding and really those parking, the spaces closest to the creek.
Sure.
There's 70 something there, and probably, I've personally been there during the floods, so.
Yeah.
There's probably a good 30 of them that would, trying to move 30 RVs in a hurry
Yeah.
is not easy.
One of the ways we'd like to address that is making sure that those sites in particular that you're talking about that may be a little bit closer to that area, if it ever did happen, would be that we would make sure that those were short-term guests, meaning that they're not going to be there any longer than 2 to 3 days, more than likely maybe a week. If you've ever camped, if you're camping I'm a camper, so we travel around Texas and camp, but if you're staying at a place for a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, you kind of set up shop there and you're ready to go quickly. But if you're a short-term camper, more than likely you're ready to go because you're going to be there for 2 or 3 days and you can get your gear packed up pretty quickly. And if there was an emergency situation, we feel like we could notify those folks in a quick fashion and assist them and help them. Our staff would be on all hands, obviously, if something like that were to occur. So.
Jeremy, you know, that third one, the furthest north exit, because again, it wasn't on the conceptual site plan, so I don't know if it's something we can add in the SUP once it hits phase 4? No, phase 3? That the green is phase
Yeah.
3? That at that point, that be required to be in place? Again, it's not on the conceptual site plan, so I just want to make sure, you know, we're looking at a evacuation map. I want to make sure that that is available when that time comes. So inside of phase 3.
Would that be a fire marshal issue as well?
Well, we currently don't have fire marshal, so this probably fall in your lap. But we can actually, since it's a SUP, we can add this stipulation into the motion as right now. So I would say that it's very much needed, 300 sites. You wouldn't
We
evacuate them
agree.
all.
We agree.
You wouldn't evacuate them all by any
We're
means.
with you on
Yeah.
So anyway, I would just maybe think about framing that into the motion.
Sure. No, I agree.
How many fire hydrants are on the property?
Right now, there's one located at the, I think there's one located at the intersection of the road that is south that connects there. And then I believe there's one just on the other side of the substation. So,
But you don't have any within
None
the
on
park
site, none on
itself?
the property.
yeah, none on the property itself.
Everything within is all private, no city lines in there.
Because I've seen trailers go up and stuff.
They
They go
seem
poof
odd.
really quick. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Masterville?
I don't have any questions. I'd like to just commend the gentleman or personnel who wrote up this evacuation plan. I'm a disaster preparedness NCO in my career, and this is extremely well done. This should be handed out to every citizen in the city because it specifies exactly what you need to know, and it's a great piece of material. Whoever did it
Thank you.
deserves our thanks. That's fantastic.
George, look at him. He did good.
More of a question. I think Craig actually dropped off.
Okay.
Do you want to talk to him again? He's on another meeting.
Oh, you got it working? So the only question I had, Craig, can you hear me? So my question, what I was going to get to is for the tornado evacuation. I know we've been kind of discussing our tornado sirens around town, and you know how well do you hear them around town? I know from my house, it has to be like really quiet and really still to be able to hear the siren. Which, if we're having bad weather, it's not going to be quiet. So that really is my question from that aspect. How well can you hear the tornado sirens here off of Gregg? Because I live further past.
Destiny, I thought we updated those.
Yeah, I thought we were.
I'll jump in on that one. In fact, that those sirens are not designed here while in your house. They're an outdoor warning system.
Mhm.
So if you're outside, you're supposed to be able to hear it. It is not designed to notify you if you're in your
We
house.
did something where we get
Yeah.
cell phone alerts.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's your tornado warning.
Yeah.
I guess so.
But anyway, so a lot of people ask that question, why I can't hear it in my house? It's not there for you to hear in your house. It's
Yeah.
there for you. But these are not
Outdoor.
the same as structure. You don't
Yeah.
want to be in one of those during a tornado or high wind. So
Yeah.
maybe that'd be something we add later, something closer to that end of town. I would say it's not far from that end.
Sure.
I don't know, I haven't been there. I don't know, have you ever heard them go off at the RV park? The one on Tinsley? But again, it's not designed to be that indoor alert system.
Yeah, I can barely hear it outside.
Hmm.
So.
I think that would definitely be something on us to do later. We need to add that.
And there's a lot of ways to get those types of weather alerts these days. I
Yeah.
heard you mention technology
Yeah.
earlier, and you can get it on your phone.
Yep.
you know, watching the news on the radio, if there's a tornado in the vicinity,
You're gonna know
you're
about
gonna
it.
know.
And the system that we'll use, will be able to send text alerts to anybody who's staying at our beach.
Very cool.
So,
Very cool.
Any other questions, comments from council?
Just real quick, Craig confirmed that they were looking into upgrading, and he has a proposal right now for 2.3 million.
Oh, good.
Okay. Alrighty.
Well, back in, when I was telling the council, they were pricing units, you know, I think around 46,000 per single unit. This was back in 2012?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we'll have to bring that up in something.
they're not cheap.
Discussion. So, that's for sure. Okay. That being said, Jimmy, do you wanna try to make a motion to include that exit when you see fit?
Yeah, I'm gonna mess it up.
No, no. This is the week we don't.
Hey, pray for me, but I'll be there in a second. We get all the way back to it.
No, no, no. Nobody agreed.
You know, I'll be as quick as
Practice
I
it,
can.
yeah.
Motion to approve application of Seth Hansen on behalf of Ken Baker for this approval of the specific use permit for a recreational vehicle park on 70.422 acres of the 269.149 acres, also known as the Carlos Ocampo Survey Abstract 32, as addressed at 1633 Gray Drive, with the amendment that a third ingress egress be added within the phase 3 development. So I get a winner chicken dinner.
You did really, really good.
I'll second that.
Okay.
The second.
Mr. Baker.
Good job, Jim.
So we do have a motion to approve the ordinance as it stands with the additional, amendment to add an additional exit, during phase 3. With Mr. Rogers approving, Mr. Baker seconding. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That fully passes. Congrats.
This is exciting. It's gonna be really cool.
Great job.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Okay, moving on to item 12. This is also a public hearing. This will be to consider and any possible action to approve ordinance 2022-039 regarding the application of Bill Gray for approval of a specific use permit for a personal wireless tower on approximately 35.3 acres known as Glendo 1, Tract 48, addressed at 5353 Rosenthal Parkway.
Thank you.
Can you get Wi-Fi?
The applicant is in an ag district. The personal cell towers are permitted there. The applicant wants to install a 75-foot light-duty tower for personal internet use. The applicant states that it's the wireless service there is unreliable, so he wants to have his own tower. The tower will be mounted to the back of the barn that is existing on the property. It'll be 75 feet in height. It'll be anchored. There will not be anchors, but it will be within 15 feet of concrete within the ground. The specs that were in the packet is a RON 25G light duty structure, pre-engineered. As you can see on the slide here, this is the applicant's property. Go to the next slide. That's where it is a little closer right there on the white structure there. That is the barn in the back. You wouldn't mind going to the next slide. So that's the future land use map. It's in ag. The next slide is the zoning map. So it is it is in agriculture as well. Sorry, get my wires crossed. If you wouldn't mind going to the next few slides, the next one will show. So this is the surrounding land uses, but I guess I just wanted to kind of get to the next one that shows the examples of the tower. So I've been working or talking with Mr. Gray and his engineer on this. This is just an example of a 75-foot tower here. This is a lattice structure. This is actually a RON 25G. So there it is, just to give some context to what it looks like near a structure. The next slide is just for an example. I've had one myself like this, where it's just the internet receiver. It's just a little kind of bowl thing. They don't know exactly what brand or type will be on it, but it'll be roughly that size. And then lastly, we could go to the final slide that shows the map. Yeah, so these are all the specs, the engineering specs that includes the bracket and everything else. The purpose of bracketing it to the barn, it gives it a little extra stability, but it also reduces the footprint
Is this the one we're talking about?
of the property. Yes, ma'am, thank you. It's a little hard to read here, but one of the things we had to look at is just to ensure that there's enough distance or clearance around it, and he meets those clearance requirements. The surrounding properties are ag, they're not. Some of them are single family down there on the bottom right, but he's nowhere near those. The one there to the left is ag as well. So his own home, he will be about, I think it was 300 something feet away from his own home, or 630 feet away. So he will meet clearance across the board for any kind of residential use or dwelling area. The applicant is not here today.
Okay, so before we move any further, since this regular agenda item is a public hearing, I'll open up the public hearing at 6:55. Knowing the applicant isn't here, is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak for or against this item? Who would mind stating your name and address?
Starla Johnson. I reside at 538 Tynes Road. So I'm just like the pasture owner, basically. Honestly, I don't know much about personal use of cell phone towers. I was curious to know the radio frequencies that's going to be emitted, or like, is there any concern that I should have for any kind of pollution in the way of radio waves? That was my main reason for coming today. The property, let's see, I pulled it up on Google Maps, and I didn't know where the tower was going to be, but on Google Maps, it's like a 2,400 linear foot spread from his house to my house, and I just want to make sure that we're going to be, I guess, protected if there's any kind of emissions. I didn't really come prepared because I don't know what kind of frequencies these emit. I tried to do a little bit of research on it, and I was not overly successful. And then my second question would be, making sure, I guess, what radio frequency is he going to use? Like a personal use? Is he going to link up with like CenturyLink or somebody? And then is he going to plan to lease it out to any of the other internet companies? And will there be any interference with my cell service in that area?
No, good questions, and since this is
Yeah.
public hearing, we will ask the same questions, because I had the same
I'm gonna pick up a couple of your questions as
Yep.
well, so.
Good.
So, all right.
You're good. Thanks for coming.
Thank you,
Yes.
appreciate it. Anybody else? Okay. With that being said, we will close the public hearing at 6:57. All right, so this is where we're gonna need you. Jimmy, I'll let you start and,
I'll jump out there. So the first question, will this tower be available for leasing to some of the franchise utilities that operate in the area? Is
No,
not
it
available.
will- it's a light duty tower, so it won't be able to handle that. The applicant has stated that he has no intention of leasing it out or doing anything else with it other than personal, internet use. There's not gonna be additional electrical ran out there or anything, so the only thing that's powering, I guess the receiver will be just the low voltage wire that runs up to the receiver. From what I understand, I can't answer the questions to the frequencies or the type of frequencies, but it is for, I don't know the carrier, whether it's AT&T or CenturyLink or anything like that, but it'll be that level of internet provider.
Was the tower itself, so we've had a few, Verizon came in 2-3 years ago and we're putting up, I'm forgetting the height, they were shorter than 75 foot. And so they're putting all around, and so they can actually put devices on existing poles, utility poles, and not even put up towers. So my question about the leasing is, in this SUP, is there anything, because I don't want to go down this rabbit hole of, hey, he put it up, now I want to put one up, I'm going to lease this out, and I'm all of a sudden, boom, 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 here we go with everybody putting up towers. I say everybody, making this an opportunity for folks to make a lot of money.
I think these towers are similar to what we used to have when growing up. It's just like a regular television
Yeah, we
antenna.
want to get a good
It's just a
reception.
receiver, it's not a relay tower like the little ones they put on the telephone poles. They're part of a grid that relay to one to one to one to one, and then spread out a signal. This is just a personal receiver. It's like a television antenna. It's just the fact that it's rather straight rather than have the fingers that stick out.
So two things on the current franchise utility agreements, and I'm not an expert on these, you don't have to have, you could just bolt it to anything these days, but since, most telephone poles, these utility poles are easements, they can just jump on them.
Yeah.
Do we open up this avenue where these towers now become, these towers are now part, are accessible to the utility companies? Is that the next wave? Because I don't know if you remember the discussion, you were on council back then about some of these weird looking devices being added to poles around town.
Anytime that you would infringe on the commercial dissemination of a signal, it's got to be approved by FCC anyway. And they're not going to do it on a personal property, but all their licensing and researching and everything else. That's like with the high grid power lines over the developments down below. What's in place is more or less grandfathered in, but anything existing going forward, once you're into a relay situation where you're taking a signal and transmitting to another area, then it's all FCC controlled anyway.
Correct, but these towers can be, they can be leased. My in-laws have.
They could be leased, but this tower doesn't have the capability to retransmit what it receives.
Yeah, until they
This
install it.
is like your dish. You receive the signal and it stays within your residence, but it doesn't go to somebody else's residence. It's basically the same thing, it's just a straight tower.
but I see what you're saying, because they're in a,
Verizon just needs a
potentially-
pole.
they have the potential to alter the use of that 70-foot tower.
Not unless you put a transmitter box,
Over
you'd
it.
have to put a transmitter on it.
And that's what Jimmy's
Where I'm
talking
going
about.
is
Yeah.
how do we prevent, or how do we know that there's not an intent to do that right now?
Right.
This is a 75-foot tower going up to improve your cell phone. First off, you're going to have to contact one of the cell phone providers to be able to boost a tower alone won't do it.
Now, is this for cell phone or internet?
Craig would
It's
like
It's just
to see-
internet receiver.
Yeah,
Jump on in.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. This particular UP is for a facility only. so, it's not really intended for commercial use. He originally wanted to put up a commercial tower, and we advised him he'd have to rezone the property to a commercial property use, so he actually, I believe, ended up putting the transmitter towers out in the county. So this is just a small receiver tower for his personal use, and that's all the SUP will allow.
Perfect, so you're.
I'm not gonna say he can't put anything up there, but if he does, he'll be in violation of the SUP.
Perfect, that's what I wanted to know, that there was some kind of protection, that this couldn't just automatically become commercial, with a couple of upgrades to a tower, so, sounds like we're good then.
I wish the applicant was here, because you know, I don't get cable service where I'm at, so I have to use an antenna for a line of sight to receive internet service. And I don't need, and I get it, it's all about topography, where you're at, where's the closest satellite or dish for you to be able to connect to. 75 feet seems a little extreme to me in that area. So I don't understand, Craig, I guess if you have history, is that really required a 70-foot tower?
Yeah, so he tried other options and he couldn't find it, so that's why he basically wanted to do his own company. Hold on a second, let me get past this announcement.
Scanning him through the line, go through TSA, yeah.
Okay, I think they're done. So he originally was gonna put a tower on his property where he could both receive and provide to his neighbors. But like I said, that wasn't permitted without rezoning the property. So he did that out in the county, but in order to get the speeds he needs line of sight with his existing towers. And my understanding is that's why he's picked this height, that gives him the line of sight to the towers he's going to have out in the county, just to get that speed. This is kind of the situation that dealing with the broadband out in the rural areas. That's why the state is having to intervene to try to get service out there, because it is so difficult. Mr. Gray's just decided not to wait and do it on his own.
I would also like to add just, and we've already received calls and inquiries for existing towers, that anytime a commercial provider wants to, even if they want to maintain what they have, they still need to, they're allowed to maintain, they need to pull a permit for it. So for whatever reason, if he is contacted or wants to lease something out, a permit has to be pulled to do that. They would be in violation adding anything to it. But from what I understand, it is a light duty tower meant for personal internet service. But it's a light duty tower.
Verizon put in, I know 2 of them where they're at, but I think they did more than that. And these are 30, 40-foot towers. And they're very inconspicuous. You barely, they stick them behind a building and you don't know it's there. So it's the height kind of, it's a lot.
That's what's throwing me off.
I grew up with the country with a 50-foot
Well, I
tower,
bet
so I
it's
get that.
more expensive to go 70 foot, but that probably had to be the height they needed to get the line they needed to tap
Well,
into.
How close are you?
Can I just make a comment? I don't know if you're able to expand that picture to look at our property. So where our house is.
Can you go point it out?
So, like right here would be our house, okay? And we would be, I don't know elevation, but I think we're probably higher than what he is. And we have just a regular dish thing for internet on our roof. But in the lower pasture, there's down in a valley, there is a internet dish that was put up on a 20-foot roof, and they only had to go up 35 feet to reach signal, which would be 55 feet of height. And that was down, like, not even up on the hill.
Yeah.
I don't think that he would put any higher than if.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
Unless he had an intent.
Well, and he started off with commercial, so I do think that,
Well, to provide for neighbors, which, that was my first thing. I'm like, is he gonna give everybody his Wi-Fi password? He's doing this, you know, like share the wealth. So I would have started out trying to provide it for everybody too. If you're going to make that kind of investment, you know, and help your neighbors.
At what height of an antenna is a beacon required?
Or who's installing this? Is he installing it himself?
He's installing it himself. He's gonna have he has a company or someone he works with to install it. He has a few other more commercial towers
Yeah.
around here.
Mhm.
So I don't know who would install it. But he has someone that he'll use.
My in-laws put one in, so they could get to there.
But would he require a beacon at 75 feet?
I don't believe so. I think, I'm not sure when you need a beacon, honestly, but I don't think you need one at 75 feet, or it doesn't state in our ordinance.
Because if it does require a beacon, and he mentioned that he's just gonna have low voltage running up to it, no electricity, well, you're obviously gonna have to have at least 110 run to it if it does require a beacon.
I'm looking through
I'm,
this.
I'm not necessarily opposed to it, other than, I think my concerns are, was this a commercial project in disguise? Because those leases get profitable, quite profitable. And so, I understand, here's the biggest thing. The state legislation is about to push for major funding for internet in rural communities, and the funding, and the county is already there. There's some money available now to push it into the county, so.
He may be jumping the gun.
Well, I would have, yeah, I mean, I would too, if I had that kind of money.
Yeah. Slow internet sucks.
Yeah, it would drive me nuts.
Master George, so you're saying since it's just a receiving tower, that there are no, like, waves go?
No,
Okay.
it's not transmitting, it's just a receiver, just like a television antenna you put on top of the house.
The waves
Just
are
the fact that it's high because of the terrain, the line of sight over the contours of this area make it really difficult to get signals.
Yep.
I know we down on East Rocket, and we're on a relatively high spot, but because of the way the contour is between us and any transmitting towers, sometimes we're in a black zone.
Yeah.
That's what Verizon is doing. They claim to have the best, biggest network, but they're just mounting these
Yeah.
devices on different types of poles and buildings. You can get them on buildings, and you get paid quite a bit to mount those.
I'm about to
Yeah.
offer up my house.
But I think what Craig said satisfies me on that.
Yeah, with the Verizon towers, those are relay towers, similar to like, right around 77, that string of towers that you can see. Those are repeaters, is what they call them. They'll take a signal and transmit it to the next, and each, I think, every 6 or 7, there's a booster box that increases the signal strength so it gets to the next 6 or 7 down the line.
I think the cell phone technology is growing faster than the radio frequency technology though. So there's some devices out there, literally, you barely notice it. It looks like a weird object. I've had people ask me, what is that on that pole? Why is that there? And it's just the new cell phone technology.
Watching you. So if we approve this, should we put a stipulation in there that he has to share his Wi-Fi password?
Well, it looks like one of the letters that came back
Two in
in
opposition.
favor was, they're very much in favor of anything helping our community. We need easier access in our area. This would be a great asset to our area. So it sounds almost as though
He's given him the password already.
I don't know what to make of that without the applicant being here.
I'm more worried about the commercial. the monetary aspect of it, just because it would open up us later if we have other people doing this.
But wouldn't he have to reapply?
He wouldn't be able to do it on his tower. If I understood correctly, he would have to apply for a permit to be able to make this a commercial tower and use it for leasing purposes.
So then the commercial-ish thing is
I'm-
not really an issue?
Not really.
Mhm.
I feel comfortable that we're
Yep.
good. Now, the health aspect of it that she brought up, I got no way to answer that question. I mean,
Well, with it being a receiving only, like Mr. Master George said, it's just, the waves are already out there.
It's just captured.
So it's kind of like standing in front of your microwave. They're there, but
I do think
that
about
little
that.
black grid in the window stops those.
my in-laws have had a 300+ foot AT&T tower on their 10-acre property for the last 8-9 years, and nothing yet.
Nothing.
No.
Same number of toes and fingers
Yeah.
as they had before.
Let's predate it.
Mm.
But I don't think you would have anything to worry about.
I just didn't know if it was, like you say, transmitting.
Mhm.
It's just receiving, so the waves, the radio waves, the signal is already out there, it's just catching that signal.
I would have never known.
Yeah, I'm like y'all. If it's just like what I'm having to use, which is just a line of sight, and just unfortunately the topography is
Mhm.
to where you have to have a 70-foot tower. You were close to a 55-foot tower, maybe there's 20 feet somewhere. Eyes are very deceiving when you just look at land.
I don't blame you. I can't even work from home. My internet kicks me off.
Yeah. And maybe he works from home. Maybe this is why he's investing, because it's not cheap. He's, you
This
know.
is not a,
No.
this is a big investment.
Yeah.
Well, Elon Musk has Starlink up
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
It's coming. I mean, I'd be willing to motion. Well, are we at a point for a motion?
Yeah, that's why I was looking at you.
Motion to approve the application of Dual Gray for a specific use permit for a personal wireless tower on approximately 35.3 acres, known as the Glenda One Track 48, addressed at 5353 Rosenthal Parkway.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve ordinance 2022-039 by Mr. Rogers, seconded by Ms. McLean. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, all in favor, no opposed? Passes.
I'd still try to get us past it, you know? You could start working from home.
Okay, moving to item 13, mayor and council member updates and requests for items to be placed on future agendas. Mr. Rogers?
Have none?
Ms. McLean?
Zero?
Mr. Baker?
I have none.
Mr. Master George?
I have one thing I'd like for the council's consideration to get together with the city manager and the heads of all of our departments. We need to have a list of successor appointments from the heads of the departments, just in case somebody gets incapacitated. We need to know who we can fall back on for, let's say, streets, roads, water department. A lot of our staff, including myself, are getting up in years. And I'd like to have a set person in place as a successor, and I'd like the heads of the departments to present this list to the city manager and then to us. I think it's something that should always be on hand in a city of any size. We don't have deputy positions as such, but we should have deputies in place and available if needed.
So rank and file.
Yeah. You've got to have a
Chain of command.
scale of succession or chain of command.
I agree.
Okay. You got that down?
Mhm.
Maybe go.
Good. No, I'm sorry.
Just blind, yeah.
Just
Okay.
blind.
Okay. Alrighty.
Thank you.
That note's been taken, we'll pass that along. So we'll move to item number 14 to adjourn. 7:17.
Here we go, John. That's a pink shit like I've never seen.